tips and thoughts here.
Now, Jeff, if I'm going to have an alto singer, can you give me a general feel of where I should set that at?
Actually, Gary, no, I can't. The reason being is because everybody's voice is a little bit different. And even though you might have an alto singer or a bass singer, what you need to do to the voice to make it sound correct is not always the same for all altos or all bass singers. And also, it's not such that a bass singer, you want to turn the bass up. In fact, quite the contrary, that would probably make it too thick and too muddy. And the same with with the alto singer, you're not going to turn the high frequencies up because that's not going to work either. Something to keep in mind here with this equalization, Gary, is as we look at speech, there's vowels and consonants in speech. And if we look at that, and we look at the sounds that the vowels make versus the sounds that the consonants make, what we're going to notice is that vowels are lower mid sounds, A, E, I, O, U.
Right. Lower mid, meaning?
Lower mid frequencies.
Which frequencies?
Well, in the neighborhood of 600 to 200. Now, if we look at speech and we run all our vowels together, A, E, I, O, U, we've got mumbling. And if we look at the consonants, those are the sounds and frequencies that differentiate what words we're speaking. Cat, hat, and those frequencies, if we look at the consonant frequencies, those are upper middle frequencies.
Again,
those are
range.
frequencies from 1,000 to 4,000. So what we can do based on that knowledge is if we have a speaker that it's not coming through real clear, we can dial into the frequencies of, say, 2,000 and turn that up a little bit, and that's going to emphasize the consonants and it's going to make it clearer. Now, there's more than one way to do that. We can also de-emphasize the lower mid frequencies. We can turn our sweepable mid frequency down to 400, and we can subtract some of that frequency. So that will get rid of some of that muddiness in the voice. And that's kind of true no matter if it's a alto singer or a bass singer. And also, to look at this further, if we take the bass frequency and we turn this way up, what that's going to do is it's going to emphasize those low frequencies, and it's going to make that voice real rumbly and real hard to understand, not very clear. And coming up to the top frequencies, the treble, the high frequencies, if we turn that up too high, we're going to emphasize the S's in the speech, and it's going to be kind of annoying. So, with these frequencies, I can't give you do this for a bass singer, do this for an alto, but what I can tell you is listen to the speech, and you can emphasize or de-emphasize various parts of it and achieve it to better clarity. Especially when you're getting singers to mix with a band, you might have to emphasize the clarity in and of itself. If you listen to just that microphone, it would sound kind of bright and harsh. But put that into the mix where that vocal now comes through and it's understood over top of the music.
So what you're saying there is it's very important to understand how to get those sounds into the numeric value, again, so you know where it's at on the mixer, and to hear those sounds, and then go into either boost or subtract those frequencies. Now, on a personal level, I tend to be a minimalist in general. And by that I mean I would rather subtract out of my mix than add. And no pun intended, Jeff, but add a little more to that.
Yes, you're better off subtracting if possible. Sometimes you have to add. Something to be aware of, Gary, is if you end up adding a little bit of high frequency on this channel, and you're listening and you end up adding high frequency on a whole bunch of channels, if you add this all the way across the board, the outcome of that is a huge high frequency boost in your sound system. Just a little bit in each channel multiplies itself greatly, so by the time it hits your speakers, you're blasting them with high frequencies. And if that's the case, you need to be careful. That's when speaker damage happens. So keep an eye on your mixer channels, on your equalization. If you got a problem that you're doing on each channel, you're going to want to address that issue downstream in your equalization, in your system equalization.
Right, and your overall, that would indicate that there's a problem with your system. If you're having to boost a particular frequency or cut a particular frequency, like if it always rings at, you're always cutting every time, 1,000 hertz out of the mix on every channel because you're getting feedback or it doesn't sound very clear. Good indication that you need to look at your overall sound system.
And there again, you definitely want to have somebody that's qualified to take a look at that for you. And also,
so don't call Jeff.
And it also could be, excuse me, it also could be acoustical factor, where there's certain acoustical issues in your room that cause those problems as well. So it's not always a sound system. But be aware of that. Be aware of the general trend in all of your EQs on your channels.
So would you say, Jeff, that you are a minimalist as well?
I'm a naturalist.
On that note, we can move on beyond equalization, and let's go down here to the next section and kind of guide us through. We've got our water, and now as I look at it, we've got our water that's come down, and now we've decided to add water softener to it, or calcium hardness increaser, or whatever. We've now made that water more tasty to whoever it's headed to.
The next section that we're going to get down into is the group of buttons that's right around our master volume control down here. Or, excuse me, not our master, our channel volume control here.
Right, or fader, as you'll hear us use those terms interchangeably.
And one little handy button that some mixers have, not all the smaller ones have, but a lot of them do now, is a mute button. Now what this does is it mutes this channel.
Turns it off.
Turns it off. Now, first time I introduce mutes to people, they always ask me the same question. Can I set up all my channels and then just hit the mute buttons and be real lazy about mixing? They don't say it that way, but that's what they mean. My answer is yes and no. Technically, you can do that. You can just sit there, and as soon as the pastor walks up, you can unmute it, and he'll start talking, and then when he's done, you can mute it.
Now, this would go back to the pay attention rule.
That's correct.
Exactly, because if you do not pay attention...
If you don't pay attention, when you turn that on and the pastor's already started to speak, the microphone goes, hello. It comes in very abruptly. Now, I caution people about doing this, mixing like that. And it's not so much, even if you pay attention, it's a very abrupt change. And keep in mind that this might be being heard in the nursery, or this might be on tape. Mm-hmm. And as you're listening to it in the nursery, where you hear the background noise and all of a sudden you hear dead air or quietness, it makes you think, what happened? Did the tape just break? Did the speaker just stop? So a better way to do that might be just to slide the volume control down slowly and then mute the button.
Let's take that a step further. You gave reference to the stage monitors, where hearing that little bit of noise in there lets the performer know that the monitor is actually on. In some mixing boards, actually in most mixing boards, the mute button is going to affect the auxiliary section, which would be the monitors, at that point, and that would lead to that abrupt change for them as well.
That's correct. And so mixing with the mute button, another thing that's really easy to do is, after a pause in the service, the musicians get back up and they pick up their microphones. With the volume control already turned up, you might think that everything's fine and not realize that, oh, I've got to unmute it. So that's where paying attention, that can catch you quite easily. So you can sit there and be what I like to call lazy mixing and mix with the mutes, but there are some side effects to it that you need to be aware of.
Right. But on the other hand, very powerful tool for when the worship team is done playing, or when the band is done, or when the drama is done and the person's not coming back on stage. You don't have to worry about turning all your monitors off, that type of stuff. You can just mute the channel and you're all set.
Mute the channel and you're all set. Now, Gary, on this